Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our budget meeting for this evening. And this is the meeting that we will receive our budget from the county manager. And after that, we will review it at home and start our budget meetings thereafter. We'll start off with our prayer and pledge. And Commissioner Evans wanted to talk, so he's going to do the prayer for us. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Everybody here, please. Dear Lord, Heavenly Father, once again, we assemble here today to do people's business, Lord. Please keep us in a sharp set of mind, Lord, so that we can do things accurately and in fashion and in a timely manner, Lord. Please bless each and every one that's represented here with their various families and continue to bless and keep us in your name's sake. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will call upon our county manager, Ms. Amy Cannon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Commissioners.
And we are ready, Madam Manager.
Okay, I'm ready as well.
All
We'll
right.
get started.
Let's get this show started.
Okay. I'm pleased this evening to present the fiscal year 2023 recommended budget. The budget is balanced in accordance with the North Carolina Local Government Budget and Fiscal Control Act. We'll start with a high-level review this evening. The total budget recommended for the all annual funds is right at $553 million. The tax rate remains the same at 79.9 cents per hundred to support the recommended general fund or operating budget of $362 million. The last 2 years have been characterized by rapid, abrupt, and constant change because of the magnitude of the pandemic. Uncertainty continues as we transition to what I'm going to call this evening the new normal. As the pandemic emerged, we were forced to adapt from work from home, serving citizens by telephone or electronically, parents homeschooling their children, and we were also experiencing lockdown and quarantine. We found ourselves in uncharted territory, but the county navigated these challenges extremely well by employing unique strategies to continue to provide services. Over the last year or so, vaccines have become widely available. For the most part, our positive cases have declined, and Americans have begun to return to their pre-pandemic activities, such as visiting the grocery store, eating out, and also even going to indoor events and activities. National employment was at an all-time high in March of 2020 at 15%. And unemployment is now down to 4% currently. Other areas still remain unsettled today. There's been uneven recovery in the economy. Wage gains have then been diluted by the highest inflation in 4 decades. Our labor market nationally is crippled, and there have been alarming increases in fatal drug overdoses that could be linked to the lingering pandemic and the impacts that it has taken emotionally and mentally on citizens. Uncertainty remains. There's a long-term shift to remote work, and the impacts of that are both positive and negative, as well as there's a possibility of continuing emerging variants that may upend some of the progress that we've made over the last year or so. Thus, the new normal is still emerging today. The county's continued focus on resiliency, recovery, and restructuring ensures our ability to tackle the persistent impacts of the pandemic as well as any economic downturns. This Board of Commissioners should be commended for your commitment to fiscal discipline and creating a resilient organization. That has served us well in managing the pandemic crisis over the last 2 years. An important factor in our economy is inflation. The Consumer Price Index is indicating an inflation rate of 8.5% currently. To combat inflation, the Federal Reserve has raised interest rates twice, the last time 50 basis points just this month. Uncertainty remains around the war in Ukraine. Sanctions by the United States and other countries include a ban on importing Russian oil, contributing to the rising fuel prices. At this time last year, a gallon of gas averaged $2.63 a gallon. For the last couple of weeks, it's been hovering between $4.19 and even in $4.30. And there are predictions of it going as high as $6 a gallon by the end of summer. Inflation, the increased cost of goods and services, and interest rate hikes will continue to reduce disposable income. Economic optimism nationally among chief financial officers has eroded in the first quarter of 2022. Their three main concerns are cost pressures, labor quality and labor availability, and continued supply chain delays. So let's start with our budget development goals. The board has ongoing priorities that you originally established in fiscal year 2021. Those priorities represent key investments in this community. Those investments address the health, well-being, safety, and the quality of life for our community. This recommended budget has been prepared to advance your strategic priorities. We'll begin with a discussion of the general fund revenues. Ad valorem taxes, as you know, is the largest single revenue source in the general fund, and it makes up about 55% of total revenue. For real and personal property, we're projecting about a $2 million increase over the prior budget. For many years, we've seen consistent growth in the motor vehicle collections. Based upon current year collections, we believe that growth is declining. That's based upon global supply chain delays and also inflation increasing the cost of the price of new vehicles. Our budget has been conservatively projected with a $1 million increase in motor vehicles for the upcoming year. Sales tax. During fiscal years 21 and 22, we experienced historic growth in sales tax. That growth for that 2-year period averaged 12.2%. Average growth pre-pandemic was about 3.3%. For fiscal year 2023, sales tax is budgeted at a modest 4% increase. Some of the factors contributing to that modest projection are the elimination of the federal stimulus funding and the federal child care tax credit, and the reduction of disposable income and that inverse relationship with inflation. The recommended budget includes an appropriation of fund balance just under $8 million. This fund balance appropriation is in alignment with the board's approved policy. The minimum unassigned fund balance goal is now 12 to 15%. Previously, that minimum was 10%. In March, the board voted to increase that unassigned amount to ensure that we had sufficient cash flow in the event of natural disasters or economic downturns. This is another fiscally prudent action taken by the board to ensure resiliency in the event of adverse conditions. The departments requested $10.4 million of one-time and recurring expenditures above the base budget. That $10.4 million represents 32 new requested positions, 82 vehicles, and capital outlay. Due to limited revenue growth and significant mandated expenditure increases in this budget, I had to make some tough decisions to balance this budget. But our focus remained on three things: to maintain current services, to address unmet needs where possible within the funding available, and to continue advancing the board's strategic priorities. The first step in putting the budget together was to address those unfunded mandates that increased the base from last year. For fiscal year 23, the mandated increases accounted for over $6 million, and they're attributable to rising health insurance claims, increasing employer retirement contributions, increase in some of our insurance categories, and also the state increasing or aligning and evening up the county share of the youth facility operating cost. Once we considered the mandated increases, our next step was to prioritize the board's goal. On the screen right now, you see three key projects that I'd like to share a few thoughts about this evening. For fiscal year 2022, the board hired MVP Carolinas, Inc. as our owner's representative for the Crown Center project. They've been tasked with leading all facets of this important community project. MVP is currently working very closely with the board's Crown Event Center Committee as we move through the community engagement process with individuals and organizations that may utilize the facility. That community engagement is designed to get some programmatic input on how to design the facility to be used. In tandem, MVP is currently surveying sites in 3 strategic areas for placement of that facility. For the public water access in Grace Creek, the recommended budget includes $258,000 in your capital investment fund. Those funds are placed there to move the first phase of the project forward. That first phase will serve 2 elementary schools in Grace Creek and pick up residential customers along that route. The funding is allocated for permitting cost, for easement acquisition, DOT encroachment agreements, and also to prepare for the bidding phase during fiscal year 2023. An important part of this, though, is our work plan. Our work plan in 23 includes a public education and outreach campaign with the Grace Creek citizens. The county will hold sessions, informational sessions, to inform the citizens about phase 1 of this important project. In this outreach campaign, we'll collaborate with the citizens to help them see the benefits of early sign-on to the system. Now in the area of homelessness, in the last legislative session, the General Assembly allocated $1 million to the county to construct a homeless shelter in our community. Early discussions have led to a collaborative effort between Cape Fear Valley Health System and Fayetteville Technical Community College. Currently, the county is evaluating sites for placement of a shelter. Two of the board's budget priorities that have moved forward from fiscal year 21 are in the areas of mental health and public health. Local funding for mental health services has remained the same since 2013. Alliance Health has approximately $3 million of county funds in fund balance. Now, these funds have accumulated over the last 2 years during the pandemic. Included with this budget is a recommendation to utilize $1 million of the $3 million for mental health additional services in our community. Staff are currently working with Alliance Health, looking at the unmet needs and how we can align the $1 million for mental health services in our community. To address the board's goals under public health, we have 2 new initiatives this evening. The first one is a 3-year pilot program. The title is Prevention Services Through In-Home Case Management. This board has remained concerned with the county's health rankings compared to all other North Carolina counties. Cumberland County ranks in the lower middle range of all North Carolina counties for health outcomes and health factors. And we all know there's a wide range of factors. Some are education, income, housing, transportation or the lack of, and access to health care. We believe a proactive approach is needed to improve the health outcomes of our citizens who encounter barriers from social determinants that then define their future. This program is also designed to have some positive outcomes in the area of foster care to reduce the number through this collaborative looking at the whole family in-home case management program. Now, this is a collaboration between the Department of Social Services and Public Health. The recommended budget includes net county dollars of $390,000 to fund 16 positions and operating costs with a projected launch date near the end of 2022 as those 2 directors work together to fully lay out the program and strategies. The second pilot program is a patient transportation program for public health clients. We have a high no-show rate for appointments in our public health department. A survey among our clients indicates that transportation is a barrier. I just mentioned that as a factor, and it contributes to our no-show rate. To address this challenge, the recommended budget includes $50,000 for a transportation program. We want to utilize either Uber Health or Lyft Business for healthcare. Both services offer real-time tracking, same-day service, and reasonable fares. The health department is going to be the coordinator. They're going to manage the program. They're going to do all of the tracking and scheduling of the transportation. Now, I'd like to share some details specifically about the vehicles that are recommended and the new positions in the budget. We're going to do it a little bit different this year. We're going to do it by functional area. And we'll begin in the area of public safety. For animal services, we're recommending 1 replacement vehicle. We're also recommending a volunteer coordinator position. Currently, we have 1 position in the shelter that deals with the rescue program, the fostering program, and volunteer coordinator program. All of these 3 programs are critical to the success and the care of the animals in the shelter. This new position will just be dedicated to recruiting volunteers, to the training and oversight. For emergency services, we're recommending 1 replacement vehicle. Currently, we have 1 telecommunications manager position. That 1 manager oversees a complex 24/7 operation supervising 44 employees. He's also responsible for all the computer-aided dispatch adjustments to the system, outreach and coordination with all of our public safety agencies, not to mention the personnel management and administrative work. We believe for this critical operation, we need to add some depth, and we're recommending an assistant telecommunications manager position. For the Sheriff's Office and Detention Center, we're recommending 21 replacement vehicles. Now, we expect to have continued delays in procuring vehicles, but we need to continue to fund vehicles and to issue orders to the manufacturer to get our order in the queue. And let me tell you why. The Sheriff's fleet contains 138 Crown Victorias with model years ranging from 2003 to 2011. Our fleet management department currently is struggling to procure parts for those aging vehicles, and it's very costly. The maintenance and repair probably overrides the cost of replacement. Now we'll move to the area of human services. And in public health, we're recommending 2 new positions. Public health education is important. We just talked about that with our health outcomes and health factors. This position will work with agencies in identifying evidence-based strategies to combat some of those factors, but we're going to do this in some of the underserved areas of the county. The second position is an office assistant position in our environmental health division. We're recommending this position to improve customer service and reduce the wait time for on-site septic permits. For the Department of Social Services, we're recommending 2 replacement vehicles in the transportation program. We're also recommending a program manager position. This position will be responsible for the AMAC program, a model approach for change in aging out foster children. This program has been handled previously by a consultant through a contractual agreement. The new director believes a better approach is to move this in-house, to move the process a little bit more efficiently. We would cancel the contract, and this would save the county about $172,000 annually. Previously, we discussed the in-home case management pilot program. Now, it's budgeted in the Department of Social Services. We've done that so that we can leverage the drawdown of federal and state funds that then reduce the county share of this pilot prevention program. For child support, we currently have 1 trainer position who does training and quality assurance. Most of you know that the child support program is extremely complex. It takes months, even into a year, for agents to become proficient in their field. Right now, as we're experiencing vacancies and turnover, individualized training is really non-existent. Most of the training is in a group setting. We've conducted some exit interviews because some of our new agents are turning over quickly, and they're not feeling like the group training is getting them quickly enough proficient and confident. We believe that a second trainer position will help with our turnover. It also helps with the program performance. Under the area of economic and fiscal development, specifically in soil and water conservation, we currently have one district technician that serves the entire county. Other counties have 2 or more district technicians that assist the agricultural community and all citizens as they experience stream debris issues, soil erosion, and drainage issues. Under general government, in the area of tax administration, the tax administrator is already preparing for the 2025 revaluation. This evening, we're recommending 3 new vehicles for temporary employees that will be brought on to assist with the revaluation and 2 replacement vehicles. We're also recommending 2 time-limited data collector positions. Those positions will actually work out in the field, helping with on-site reviews to build the base for the new values. The recommended budget also includes $623,000 for capital outlay items for various county departments. Community funding is recommended at $486,000, which is the same level as the prior year. The Board of Education requested an increase in current expense funding to be spread over a 3-year period to pay for pay enhancements and pay adjustments. And I'd like to take a moment and detail out those pay adjustments. The first one is the state mandate to move all employees to a minimum of $15 an hour. Secondly, the state is also requiring a 2.5% adjustment for anyone already at the $15 an hour. The schools have also requested funding to address compression that's been caused by the movement to $15 an hour. And they're also requesting additional funding for increases to teacher, principal, and other classified staff supplements. The total request to the county is an additional $16 million annually phased in after year 2. With the proposal by the Board of Education is to utilize their fund balance and their one-time federal funds in years 1 and 2, with the county picking up the annual amount of $16 million thereafter. The Board of Education requested $5.1 million for next year. The recommended budget includes an increase of $1.3 million. The $1.3 million will fund a third of the cost to get the state and locally paid employees to the $15 minimum. Addressing salary compression is not a requirement by the state, although salary compression is an unintended consequence of committing to that $15 an hour. In fact, the county is experiencing this similar salary compression from our adjustment in fiscal year 2022 as the board made that commitment to have a minimum of $15 an hour. Unfortunately, during fiscal year 22 and even in this recommended budget, the county has not been able to address our salary compression. Finally, our current revenue stream does not provide the annual natural growth to meet this 3-year request of $16 million annually after year 2. The recommended budget includes an increase of $935,000 to Fayetteville Technical Community College. A portion of the increase will fund new operating costs associated with the new Regional Fire and Rescue Training Center. This has been a collaborative project between the community college and this Board of Commissioners. Employee recruitment and retention remains one of the Board of Commissioners' ongoing priorities. According to the U.S. Department of Labor, in August of 2021, a staggering $4.3 million and 4.3 million people quit their jobs in that month in search of better opportunities. This mass exodus is called the Great Resignation. The pandemic has lasted so long, it's impacted people both mentally and physically. It's caused employees to reflect on their priorities in life in general. Americans are seeking better pay, but even more than that, they're seeking flexible work schedules that create a better work-life balance. The Great Resignation has had an impact on all organizations, but it's been particularly challenging for public sector employers. Cumberland County is not immune from this workforce crisis. We're experiencing a high number of retirements, leading to a loss of experience and institutional knowledge. Our turnover and vacancy rates are evidenced by the average age of our employees now being 44 years of age, with an average of only 4 years of county service. This has truly become an employee-driven labor market. Employees have greater leverage in seeking higher pay and fighting for that better work-life balance. Due to our continuing challenges, this year we took a snapshot of where we are as an organization when we looked specifically at our compensation practices, our pay ranges, and then we compared employees and their pay linked with their years of service. That snapshot revealed, from a retention perspective, the majority of our workforce is close to the minimum or clustered around the minimum. And that's due because our pay structure lacks a mechanism to move people throughout their range. From a recruitment perspective, the minimum salary of many of our grades is no longer competitive in this employee-driven market. In addition, we have found that addressing some of our recruitment challenges by bringing someone in above the minimum has contributed to salary inequity. Other local governments are experiencing the same thing and that we are today. Our research indicates that many organizations are in various stages of compensation and pay studies. Locally, the city of Fayetteville just completed a study. In their recommended budget, they're implementing some of the strategies, but will do so over a multi-year period. Harnett County as well is conducting a pay study. Others that are in various stages are Durham County, Guilford, Forsyth, New Hanover, and Wake. Our prior classification study was in 2012, over 10 years ago. Those study recommendations were implemented over several budget years. The fiscal year 2023 budget includes $95,000 as a recommendation to conduct an organization-wide classification and market study. Without this study, we will continue to be outpaced by local and regional employers. But pay is not the only component, and we realize that. We need to reinvent our work environment and our policies. We need to create options for that work-life balance and strategies that will attract the next generation of employees. Our new Assistant County Manager, Mr. Brian Haney, who's also serving as the Interim HR Director, is already working on those strategies, and we'd like to bring those back at a later time. The budget also includes a recommended cost of living adjustment of 4%. Inflation has risen sharply. Our employees are struggling with rising gas prices, inflation, both of those reducing their disposable income. And in the area of law enforcement, nationally, law enforcement agencies are struggling to recruit and retain. Many agencies, including local agencies that we compete with, have created large pay incentives to improve their recruitment. We've continued to monitor the compensation market both locally and regionally for law enforcement. To remain competitive locally and regionally, the recommended budget includes a market adjustment above the cost of living adjustment. For detention officers, the new entry rate will be $40,457. This will be just above the increase in the minimum grade for the state prison system, which will be a little bit over $40,000 as of July 1. The sheriff has been very concerned about losing detention officers to state systems. For the deputy sheriff classification, the new entry rate will be $44,000. The market adjustment will be applied to all detention officers and the deputy sheriff classification, but it excludes the rank of captain and above in the sheriff's office. It is important to note the cost of living adjustment and these market adjustments did not include the identification or allocation of new funding. Due to our continued vacancy rates, salaries and fringe benefits are budgeted at 95% instead of 100% to free up funds for these two adjustments. This is a national workforce crisis, and the county is at risk if we don't begin addressing some of these challenges. Ultimately, it may impact our ability to provide efficient and timely services, especially if we continue to lose that talent and that experience. Staff burnout is a real issue and a live concern. The pandemic created mental stress, and position vacancies within all county departments have added to their stress. We've asked employees to take on additional job responsibilities where there are vacancies, and that has made their lives more difficult in keeping that work-life balance. And ultimately, that's a large goal today for many employees. There are a few other initiatives worth mentioning this evening. We've continued consolidating functions to achieve efficiency and better cross-training. Tonight, I'd like to talk about centralizing our fleet management function. Over the last several years, we've implemented strategies to improve our services to our internal customers. We've created policies and procedures to streamline our operations. And finally, we've added technology this year that eliminates a paper process. We can get data on our fleet instantaneously. The budget includes consolidating funding for general fund departments, and that funding is the funding for vehicle purchases, maintenance and repair, fuel, and insurance. We're going to budget this in the Fleet Management Cost Center. All vehicles will be purchased by fleet management to begin standardizing the fleet, to reduce our inventory and to streamline that operation a little further. Consolidating the budget categories will lead to better predicting and managing of the entire vehicle operation throughout general fund departments. For emergency generators, during Hurricanes Matthew and Florence, we opened shelters during both of those events. We learned that many centers did not have all the components to house our citizens for extended periods of time. To ensure continuity of the shelters, the board this year allocated funding to conduct the electrical engineering study and also set aside funding for the generators. We're closing in on the engineering work this fiscal year and anticipate ordering and installing the generators in the upcoming fiscal year. And finally, the recommended budget includes another pilot program, permanent remote work for social workers in the Department of Social Services. During the pandemic, the county quickly adapted to remote work where it was practical. And that transition was reactionary, but we believe it was successful as we were able to continue to provide services. However, we realized we needed a well-developed plan for continued or full-time remote work. First, in the area of information technology services, they had to adapt to troubleshooting and support remotely. And in many cases, that took more time, and it stretched our internal capacity at times. Second, in the absence of a plan, remote work could actually increase annual technology cost. Social workers have been identified as a classification of employees that work partially in the field, but really don't need an office environment to be successful. They don't need an additional office at work and office equipment at work. The budget includes $206,000 to provide scanners to make remote work more efficient at home. That ends the discussion of the general fund, and we'll talk about a few other key funds. Expenditures budgeted in the capital investment fund include capital projects, debt service, technology expenditures, and maintenance and repair. The total recommended budget for the capital investment fund is $29.9 million. The recommended budget includes funding for the Fayetteville Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, better known as FAMPO, for 2 new positions that will cost just under $117,000. However, these positions are funded 80% federal cost. The net county cost is less than $24,000. That department is seeking aggressively additional funding for projects within our community. For the Crown Center Fund, there are 3 major revenue sources that support those operations. Those revenue sources are event revenue, food and beverage, and occupancy taxes. Events were significantly limited during fiscal years 20 and 21, and revenues were negatively impacted. The good news is that those events are starting to come back and our revenues are starting to come in. Food and beverage tax collections have continued to rebound from the pandemic, as you can see from this chart. We expect continued growth in fiscal year 23 and projecting a 3% increase. The occupancy tax, however, was hit hard by COVID-19, resulting in a significant drop during the pandemic. Collections have started to rebound in fiscal year 22. We expect that climb to continue in the upcoming year, and we're projecting a 15% increase in the coming fiscal year. Our final enterprise fund is our solid waste fund. The recommended budget for solid waste is $15.8 million, an increase of a little over 4%. We're recommending 2 new solid waste attendant positions, but these 2 positions will be housed at Ann Street at the convenience site there. These positions are set to improve customer service by helping customers and citizens unload what they're dropping off at the convenience site. $2.7 million is budgeted to replace vehicles and equipment, and funding is included to continue our long-term master plan. The fiscal year 2023 recommended budget is presented this evening for your review and consideration as the board begins to develop the adopted budget. This budget is fiscally sound. It prioritizes the board's goals, and it preserves our core services. But in addition, it provides for additional mental health services. It includes a pilot prevention program, something that we've never had before, a prevention program with strategies to assist our vulnerable families. We also have a transportation program to assist public health clients in getting access to health care. It's an understatement to say that the last 2 years have been chaotic. Uncertainty remains about the economy, the labor market, and the impacts of the war in Ukraine. It's evident that that new normal is still evolving. With all of that said, our organization has continued and will continue to persevere through these challenges. And we've done that through the personal sacrifice and dedication of our workforce, our greatest asset. I want to thank, first of all of the county departments. They put a lot of work into preparing a budget and spending time meeting with me to help me understand their needs during this crisis. I also want to thank our budget division, and I'm going to ask them to stand. They won't want to, but I'm going to do it anyway. And so we have Deborah Shaw and Andrew Jakubiak. And because of vacancies, and Ty, you need to stand up, because of vacancies in our budget division, we had to call in reinforcements. Ty Vaught was deployed to budget for several months, and we brought back Kelly Autry to help us put this budget together, and I'm grateful for the job they did. In addition, it does take a village to do this, and our finance director and our deputy finance director, our Finance Director, Vicki Evans, and Deputy Finance Director, Yvonne Mendez, have also been instrumental in this process as well. I also want to thank PIO. We are not graphic design folks, and we brought in the graphic design experts to help us put together the book and this presentation this evening. And I want to thank my management team. They were an integral part of this process. Finally, I want to thank the Board of Commissioners for your support of your priorities and advancing those priorities. I'm happy to answer any questions. Remember there's a slide.
That's right. I was about to.
June 1. June 1 is our first budget session, next Wednesday evening at 5:30 in room 564. For the public, I do want to mention that Monday, June 6th is our public hearing. It will be held in this room. And if you're interested in finding out more details about the budget, you can find it online at cumberlandcountync.gov. Commissioners, thank you for giving me the opportunity to present this evening.
Thank you, Madam Manager. We appreciate your giving us the budget and taking us through it. We'll be able to look at it, and we'll be ready for our work session. If I can take a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and second. All those in favor?
Unanimous.
All right, we are adjourned.